Hi there, and welcome back to another Remnants of Naezith individual level discussion. Today's video we're going to be taking a look at Flea, which is an interesting level as it's the only level in the game that spawns you partially underwater. One cool thing about water, if you didn't know, is your movement speed is actually capped at 210 while you're in water. Interesting stuff. Aside from spawning in water, this level features a simple straightaway with lots of water along the way, lots of easy platforms to grapple onto, so it's a very good zone for getting used to grapples, preserving your speed, and the such. There are a lot of interesting new different ways to do this level, so let's just hop right in. For the beginner level, we're going to be taking a look at a run that has a 5.477 second time and puts us right around the 100 mark, so somewhere in here, 95-96. And it looks like this. Once again at half speed. Alright, let's break down what's going on and why it's happening. So for starters, you're going to notice that our buffered inputs for this are a dash and a jump. That's because, as I said before, your movement speed in water is very limited, and similarly your movement speed while you're gliding along water slows down as you move. So that means that our first objective is to get ourselves out of the water so that we can actually start moving fast. So that's why you'll see at the start here, I input a dash jump so that I can immediately get out of the water. Now we don't want a full dash jump here, because if we try to do a full dash jump, we'll get really high, and then we'll get a short grapple onto this first block. So we want to make sure that our grapple is a little bit longer than that. So we do about a half height dash jump, and then we start falling, and with that slight falling momentum, we're going to grapple onto this block and start building up some speed. So you'll see that here, we grapple onto this, we hold it until right around the vertical, and then we're going to jump again. This one is just a nice short hop so that we can grapple onto this next block. A common theme you're going to be seeing in all of these difficulties is that we're going to try and grapple onto every single one of these, or as many of these as we can with the speed that we have. Again, that's because grappling gives you more speed. So you'll see here we do a jump, and then I grapple onto this block right here. And as I continue along, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to jump again, grapple along this block, and jumping for us is doing a couple of things right here. First of all, it's making sure that we can have a decent amount of height away from this block so that we're getting those long grapples with lots of speed. Secondly, it's making sure that we stay as far away from the water as possible so that there's no risk of gliding on the water and losing any speed. And finally, that little upwards momentum we get from jumping then carries into downwards momentum, which makes our grapples gain a little bit of speed because of that downwards momentum. So after we finish grappling onto this block, we're going to keep on going. This time we're going to do a nice big jump so that we can reach all the way up here. We're going to hit this, and then the rest of this level is just us using our remaining dash charges. So we're going to do one dash with a jump, and an interesting thing is if you hit this little section here on the ground, you can actually just dash jump and dash jump again, because you'll have two jumps off of hitting the ground. So you see we dash jump, and we dash jump again. And of course here we're trying our very best to avoid this water at all costs, because that'll slow us down and ruin our run. We sail it in, nice and easy, and there we are. A simple beginner time for Flea. Alright, so let's move right along to the intermediate level run. Here we have a time of 5.303, which puts us right around the 60 rank mark. I believe right in 59. And it looks something like this. Once again at half speed. Alright, so let's break down what's happening here. For the start of this level, you're going to notice that our buffered inputs are actually a dash pull. So we're holding right the whole time, of course, but we've got grapple, dash, and jump all held down together. And what that's going to do is, as we start up the level, we're going to reach out, and as long as we hold all of these, we'll actually connect to the side of the wall here, and that'll help us to go upwards a little bit. Remember, with the beginner route, we did our dash jump so that we could get up and then start falling to build momentum. Here we're actually taking that one step further. We're going all the way up here, and then we're falling and using the second block to generate even more momentum. And you'll see that it's a rather large boost in speed. So, that being said, the problem here is that we're grappling onto the side of this block. So if we just let our momentum go as it was, we would actually go flying up the side of this block and lose a bunch of time flying all the way up here. So to counteract that, we're going to do a pretty simple jump cancel. This one's one of the easier ones that you can do. And what we're going to do here is we're going to release our grapple, release our jump, and then you're going to see that I'm going to input just a little tiny jump here. It doesn't have to be super short, it can be a little bit longer, but when I input that, you'll see that I jump here, and as long as I do that while the dash is going, I'll actually cancel all of my vertical height and start falling right around here. And this can be input even sooner, this can be input even later. There's actually quite a bit of leeway with this one, so practice this one up. The rest of the level is pretty much the same as we saw with the beginner. In this case, we're going to grapple rather close to the left side here. We're going to do another jump, a grapple, a big jump so that we can reach this, and a grapple, and then the same ending as before. We're going to dash jump off this block, dash jump again in the air, and voila, intermediate level run. So just to show that off once more, in very slow motion, we do our dash pull, we release everything, and then we jump. And that will help us to build up momentum as we continue through the level. Here we are now with the expert level run, and you'll see that this run gives us a time of 4.767, which puts us just outside of the top 10, round number 14. And our run looks something like this. And once again at half speed. So let's break this down, shall we? Similar to the previous run, and it's going to be for the next run as well, we are starting things off by buffering a dash pull. So that's grapple, dash, and jump all together. And we're going to get the exact same result where we grab onto the side of this block like so, and start building up some vertical speed. The difference this time is that instead of waiting to go all the way up and then jumping and then falling and using speed that way, we're actually going to throw out just another regular grapple so that we get enough speed to bonk our heads just on the underside of this, and that'll keep more horizontal speed moving forward. So as we see here, you're going to see that I throw out a second grapple, I bonk, and I continue moving forward. Now one thing that I do want to note that I looked at just before recording this is right here my X speed is sitting at 618. That number entirely depends on when you grapple onto this wall after your dash pull. So it's possible to, as soon as you hit this wall with your dash pull and start going up, immediately release and grapple onto it again, and that way you have a grapple that's being held for a really long time, and you can get upwards of 630 or even higher X movement speed. It's also possible to do a dash pull, release everything, and then wait until you're just next to this and then do a tiny grapple to bonk, and that gives you much less X speed, usually somewhere around 605 or even lower. In my experience, there's sort of a sweet spot in between the two. The reason you don't want too little speed is of course because you're going to go slow. The reason that you don't want too much speed is because it's harder to hit the following grapple, the one that's coming up here, and I'll explain that as we go. So hitting this sort of sweet spot somewhere in the middle makes the next grapple that we do much easier. And speaking of the next grapple, you're going to notice that I go flying off to the side, and my target is right here, this bottom corner all the way over here. The reason for that, the reason I want to hit this corner as opposed to hitting here, is my character will have more time to fall down, and also more time to extend my grapple so that it's farther away from where I am. So I'm aiming to hit just this bottom corner here so that I have more momentum and a longer grapple to generate more speed. So you'll see I fall, I fall, and then I'm going to throw out my grapple, and it's going to connect just next to this corner. If it had been a little bit farther over, it would have been even better. So I'm going to carry this swing all the way to the vertical. I accidentally carry that one a little bit past the vertical, which is where this loses some time. Then I'm going to do a nice large jump here so that I can grapple onto here. See that? And in this section, the key to getting better speeds and times here is to make sure that you're optimizing when you're throwing out your grapples. So you want to do a jump and then an immediate grapple so that your grapple comes out as soon as it can while your jump is going. And keep in mind that I'm holding space the entire time this is happening. So we continue along like this, and then we're going to throw out another jump so that we can grapple onto here. You'll see here that I do a rather large jump, and so I end up with a fairly short grapple. That's another small mistake in this run. You want to do the optimal hop is where you get up, start falling down, and just barely manage to reach this block up here. Rather tricky to hit, but you can get some real crazy speeds with that. See, I do a nice big jump here. Could have been a little bit shorter. I grapple onto here, and then I go flying off. And here, the difference, instead of hitting the ground down here, I'm actually going to do a nice big dash jump. I think I almost full hold this one, so that I can build up some upward speed because there's one more grapple to go in this level. So I do a nice big jump. I actually do full hold that one. I'm going to use my second dash, and then I'm trying to grapple onto here. That way this grapple helps with this momentum preserving. The falling momentum that I'm getting here will carry into horizontal just to get me to that remnant a little bit faster. Like so. And there you have it. That is an expert level run. I'll see you in Descendant. Okay, for the Descendant run, I'm actually going to be using the Descendants run for once. Usually it's whoever's in first, but there's an interesting argument for how these slightly different routes work. So we're going to go in depth into my run and then also into Randy's run up here. So to start things off, this is what the route looks like. And once again at half speed. Alright, let's break this down, shall we? So as I said before, the Descendant start is going to be the exact same as the last two. We're buffering our dash pull, so grapple, dash, and jump, and as always holding right, so that we can get the exact same start that we got last time. And actually, funny enough, it is the exact same start. I do my dash pull, I do my re-grapple, I let my head bonk, and I come out with, once again, 618 X movement speed, which is pretty funny. Here we're going to do the exact same thing. We're trying to hit this corner on the block or as close to it as possible. So you'll see we do the exact same thing. And once I throw out my grapple, you can see this time I got a little bit too far to the left. That might actually help with the next part. I'm not too sure. To be honest, I haven't gone super in depth into this route, looking at how to perfectly optimize it. I think still hitting to the right here and getting that extra bit of speed would have been more optimal. Either way, this is where things get very interesting. So you're going to notice as soon as my swing finishes that I'm going to throw out a dash and a jump, and then very, very shortly after a grapple. It's going to look something like this. I dash, jump, and grapple. If you blinked, you missed it. So very quick, dash, jump, grapple. And the reason that we're doing this, we're throwing out this grapple, is because we actually want to hit an extra grapple on this very top part here. But normally we don't have the height to hit it with the route that we were using before. So instead this time we're going to use this dash to do a dash jump. We're going to use this grapple to reset our jump, and use that to jump while the dash is active again to grapple all the way up to here. And so if we look at it, looks something like this. So I've got my dash jump, my grapple is going out. As soon as my grapple connects, I now have another double jump. Keep in mind my dash is still active, as you can see by the trail. I'm going to hold this almost to the vertical. In this case, I release before the vertical to make sure that my grapple doesn't go flying and miss all the way up here. And I'm going to do my next jump while the dash is active, and I'm going to throw out another grapple. And one thing also to note is I'm holding jump the entire way as soon as I do a dash jump, just so that I don't accidentally release the jump, start falling, and then my grapple misses its mark. I want to make sure my grapple connects solidly. So you see here, throw my grapple out, I hold onto this all the way to the vertical so that we're getting the most amount of speed, and then I'm going to throw out and grab onto here. Now it is important to note, I said that I was holding dash all the way through. That's true for the first one. For this second one, I'm actually intentionally holding jump, sorry, not dash. Holding jump all the way through. Here I'm actually intentionally releasing my jump just a little bit before my grapple connects, so that I start falling sooner, just to manage where my height is when I hit this. I want to be as low down as possible with as long as the grapple as possible so that I can get that juicy speed at the end. So you see here, I start falling, I grapple, I manage to hit the underside of the block, which is beautiful. I come out with 1,411 speed. Then I do a nice big dash jump, grapple onto here, and carry my speed through to the end. Just to show that off once more, same start, aiming for the same spot. We do a dash, jump, grapple, we release and do a jump and then a grapple. And then we do a nice long grapple here. Now you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself, well, that's all fine and good, but there's 25 milliseconds between you and second, and a little bit more between you and first. What's the difference here? And this is where things get interesting. I'm just going to play Rock Candy's run for you once. And once more at half speed. Now let's look at things a little bit more closely. So you see this starts the exact same. We're doing our dash pull. We're doing our regrab, and Randy actually puts his in a little bit earlier. And then you see that he throws out another grapple here. There's really two ways of thinking about speed in this game. The first is you're going for the most possible speed at the end of the level, usually at the end of the level, or along long corridors, so that you can cover that distance faster than if you have less speed. And that's the sort of stuff that I tend to do. We'll see that very vividly on the gap, where my ending speed is extraordinarily high, and yet I'm still slower than others. That's because the other mode of thought is, instead of having that really high speed at the end, although most of the time Rock Candy does anyways, and Ches does as well, but instead of focusing on getting that ending speed as high as possible, they're front-loading their speed so that they have more speed at the start, and then that gets them a little bit of an advantage at the start, a little bit of advantage in the middle, and that's enough to make up for the extra speed deficit at the end. And so this idea of front-loading your speed so that you get a small advantage at the start is kind of interesting. So in this case, it manifests as a grapple here. We're going to see another short grapple there and another short grapple here, just so that coming out of this, Rock Candy has much more speed. You see right now he's at 634 in the X direction, whereas I would have been at 618. So gaining a little bit of distance on me here. You can see another quick grapple there. So we get 654 and then another grapple here. And then the rest of this is basically the same, although this grapple, hitting this very top part, is actually preferable. This is a much longer grapple, so Rock Candy generates a lot more speed than my run did here. And then the rest of it is basically the same. You'll see that Rock Candy comes out with just a little bit more speed than I had at 1418. So 7 more speed at the end, but also front-loaded speed is what makes up this time. And then one last thing to point out is this grapple here. Rock Candy unfortunately misses this in the world record run. His previous best run had this. You can actually grapple onto this block if you time it just right with a jump and then a grapple, and that gives you just the tiniest extra bit of speed to bump into the Remnant here. So, an interesting thing to note. Anyways, that has been Flea, probably more in depth than it ever needed to be, but I hope this sheds some light on the routing that we use and what makes fast runs fast. thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful evening, night, morning, day, afternoon. I think that covers all of them. Just have a wonderful time.